Don't mind at all.
Okay, so I'm recording right now. So, yeah, looks like so there's obviously a lot of activity. I've seen there's some reports that um they're really trying to push. Lindsey Graham was asking for a special counsel to get appointed to investigate Obama for treason. So, seems to me like, what at least was what we were speaking about yesterday. The very fundamental question is what sort of crimes are the Republicans willing to attempt to commit to try to squash this story?
Well, it doesn't seem like there's anything that's off the table.
Yeah.
If and this is just speculation, I've read things that suggest it, but I wouldn't present it as fact. But if they have already used the system to silence Epstein, then you would have to make the logical conclusion that there is no barrier, for them other than what they believe they may get away with. That would, that would just be where I would be from a logic standpoint if I were, if I were questioned on what I thought.
Yeah, I understand. So let's sort of run through a few things. So I called the federal RCMP yesterday, and unfortunately, they just referred me back to a local priest, to the local police here, which they can only really do anything if it's tied to Vancouver Island. And the only way it could seem like it's tied to Vancouver Island if there's some sort of threat or something. That being said, I did have a long conversation with a police officer who had some interesting feedback. And um, a towards the end of the discussion, the officer said, well, the officer mainly said what the officer needs is even to write up an investigation to get referred to their intel department and then to the right agency. They need some corroborative, not so much evidence in the films, but just reports like, do you have a copy of your military, the years you were in the military? Do you have any copies of the CPS reports and stuff? Because they have some of those documents they can include then to write up, so then goes into their intel department and off to the right agency.
Okay.
So that's what I sent you an email of. But we can talk about that in a minute because I think there's some optics there. We want to be careful how we're asking those questions, right? In terms of any flags. So, but then the officer offered to store the audio securely. And B, the officer offered to listen to the audio while, I said, and what about when we get some of these documents? What can the officer look at? And the officer said, then the officer can write up a longer police report with something that sort of corroborates. And by corroborate, I'm not talking about like the films or anything, just like some starting point in terms of an investigation to refer to their intel group and then to another agency, whether it's like regarding national security or whatever. So
I have an idea.
Yeah.
All right. So in 1989, I was housed at a behavioral hospital in Alabama. It's called Charter Woods Memorial Hospital or Mental Hospital. I'm not sure. Mm-hmm. My parents had accused me of being on drugs, so I wasn't. Not at that point in my life. I have experimented with drugs since, but not as a child, not willingly as a child. So anyway, that would have been the first time that I talked about Donald Trump specifically by name. So I'm going to go there as soon as I get my bike back. It could be as early as tomorrow, but I'll take a little road trip and see if I can't get that paperwork. The hospital itself has been closed down, but as I understand it, all medical records have to be stored in the medical archives. And I forget which city that's in, but Alabama's not very far from me. So I'll take a trip down there and see if I can retrieve those, because that in my mind, is the best connection that I have, because I mentioned him by name. That was the first time that I did that.
Yeah. Okay. So that's great. Now, I think with the information, if you can't get from them, I know you can file a Freedom of Information Act request. My only concern was that we really look at if you suddenly start filing all these requests on police reports and CPS reports, would that flag anything? And I don't want to talk to any journalists that I don't, to get them to flag. I was hoping police requests, and I'm even looking carefully at, how could I look at requesting, or can I do so somehow anonymously? So that's what I'm trying to sort of sort a bit there. What else? Now that would be extremely helpful information. Obviously, those files. The other one that you can request that would help would be anything from your interview at Fort Carson.
Okay.
Are you comfortable to?
Well, my biggest thing there would just be, I would just, the military isn't like, if I were to contact Fort Carson now, they would have no idea what I'm talking about. I would have to track down those people that were involved in that investigation. And that is possible. I'm still in contact with some of the people that I served with from that time. So I would just need to reach out to some people and see if that's a possibility.
Yeah, that seems like that. So don't contact Fort Car. If you, what I was hoping is we could get like a copy of your interview from Fort Carson, but I understand with U.S. military all sort of classifications that might be difficult.
It might be, yes.
But they would have records of the films. That's the thing.
They would, yeah. They would have. I would think
they'd have copies somewhere.
That they possibly would,
unless they destroyed them.
Yeah, I don't know what the rules of evidence are in something like that. Very possibly they could.
I mean, seems like what we could start with is with, was it Bayless and the other fellow, that
right.
If you could try to contact them and ask them, if they would be willing to
talk about it.
Yeah. And just say it's extremely confidential, isn't with any, that it would be confidential, and so on. Like that is just like a starting point there.
Right. Well, I will reach out in that direction and see what I can reach. And as soon as I get my bike back, I will take a little trip. I've been kind of wanting to go for a ride anyway, so.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you a question. Like, do you think, is there any way that they could be, like, if you even reaching out to them might trigger anything in terms of?
Not from their end. If I'm being monitored, if I'm being passively, surveilled in some way, then maybe, but I don't know. There's so much going on that I would not think that too many resources would be dedicated to me, kind of just with everything that's going on. I doubt it would raise any flags.
Mm-hmm.
Not less. I could see potentially if I started going and trying to get my CPS reports and contacting Texas, Tennessee, Alabama, and Florida, trying to get the police reports from my childhood, I could see maybe that raising a red flag.
Yeah.
But as far as just me reaching out to my old Army buddies, I don't think so. I think I could probably communicate with them, see what they remember.
So my suggestion is that before you reach out to your old Army buddies, that you get the paperwork from the hospital first, because that's a very important starting point, just in case you reaching out to your buddies would in any way trigger anything. And you can travel there safely to and from and so on. Okay, so yeah, let's get the paperwork from the hospital, and then we can look at reaching out to the Army buddies afterwards. And then whatever of those copies, we'll just figure out how you can just photograph them. And I think with Proton Mail, there's something called Proton Drive, and there's like a certain amount of gigabytes of storage. In fact, I just uploaded one of the audio recordings in Proton Drive because I'm looking at how is most effective to get to the police officer once I go through those other audio recordings. And then on a positive, like the audio, how great the audio recordings will be stored on a Victoria Police Department's secure server. So that's something that's important. I feel much better about that actually, as a starting point. So.
Okay.
And then I think now what the police officer said. Well, let's talk about some of those in terms of like the investigation. Is this sort of, from their perspective, they look and they say, okay, how do they know you're telling the truth? And I said, well, when you hear the audio recordings, you'll hopefully you can discern.
Right.
Some folks are different. Like now the police officers, got lots of experience, and I know the police officers' approach to hearing the audio files would be quite different than sometimes how they might look. So they're asking, well, where did I meet you? Those sort of questions. And I said, well, I offered to help. I tried to provide the right context. So in terms of, I know what sort of questions folks will ask. And so some of the folks, like something that in terms of documentation that helps in terms of with the police is that, that you were at the Army. Do you have like a document that says what years you're in service that you can send me that we can start compiling those? Yeah.
I got a DD-214 that gives you my years of service. I can corroborate that like in the next few minutes as soon as I get off the phone.
Oh, sure, that's perfect because then I can send. When I send a link to the audio files, I can send an email. With the document, anything that we have that would help to provide context right now, even before she's listening to the audio files.
Yeah, I can upload my DD-214, my most current one, and it'll have both periods of service. It'll have all my schools, all my awards. It'll have everything. So I don't know how familiar you are with the military, but whenever you ETS, whenever your term is up, they give you that document, and it's basically your entire career encapsulated into, mine's 2 pages long.
Yeah.
So, I have no problem sending that to you.
And she has relatives. Just to context, I was going to say she has relatives in the military, so she has some context in terms of military family. So.
Okay. The only thing I might redact off of that is my social security number, and I would only do that by putting like a little piece of paper or something where the social security number is.
Sure.
Just in case it gets passed around, I just don't want my social security number to have access, and I won't even redact the whole thing. I'll leave my last 4 or something on there.
Yeah, that would be perfect because I think that's pretty standard in Canada on documents, just the last couple of digits.
Okay. I'll do that as soon as we get off the phone. I know right where that's at. That's in my go bag.
Awesome. Now, then another thing to ask in terms of with the military, when you were questioned, did they give you any documentation when you were questioned about the films? Do you have any notes from those years or anything?
No, nothing like that.
Okay.
I could just remember getting pulled into the office, and really the only question was, these movies are obviously older. How old were you when you did them? Is that you, and how old were you when you did them?
Yeah.
And, I said, without seeing the movie, I couldn't tell you, but it started at 9 and ended at, I remember it starting out at about 9, and then it ended around 13. So about the same thing I told you. That hasn't changed over the years.
Okay.
It is possible, however, that 9 is just where I begin to remember it, and it is very possible that it was happening before then.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm inaccurate, that would be the only way that I am being inaccurate, is just not remembering more.
Okay. Well, I think when we have some further discussions, sort of you know, I know how I can ask some questions that might help a bit with memory. But like I say, I'm really um, focused on what's actually empowering, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of like what you feel more freedom about, what's most helpful, you know.
Right.
So well, that's
Okay.
okay. So that's a good start. Those documents are great, and you don't have. Do you have any copies of like the when you when did you first? So there's the stuff from when you were younger, CPS report, any mentions of the police incidents. Those ones are super super important, but we've got to figure out a different approach of getting those because that would be a red flag if you're asking. And if there was any surveillance on the telephone call, I'm even careful about requesting. So I'm trying to figure out what sort of requests we can get in there,
Okay.
how we can get that
Well,
information. Like that's where I
I'm
was hoping. I actually even sent, I forgot to tell you, I sent an Instagram message extremely vague to Alan Analysis. He hasn't gotten back to me yet, but I'll tell you what I said. Howdy, do you signal? I'd like to ask you some questions and provide some information carefully. I've been helping an individual you've been helping. Signal chat, time sensitive. And I'm not going to tell Alan anything about our discussion. I was going to only ask him after I get a better sense of him if he could um,
share
check.
with you
Yeah,
the connection that he has.
yeah,
That would certainly be helpful.
yeah. And if he has like because we've got your text messages, but like if he can like provide copies of what exactly he saw in
Right.
the Epstein files or pointers to where we can download them.
That's good thinking. I like that.
Yeah.
And I will send you that, and I'll the states where this happened are problematic just because of how red they are. Texas, obvious. Tennessee's just as red, if not even more so. Alabama is in the same boat, and so is Florida. You know, if like one of the states had been Massachusetts or Delaware or something like that, I would be. It's not even a matter of being comfortable asking for it. It's just like you said, of drawing attention. And if we're not trying to do that at this point, it might. But if there is some sort of way, even electronically, to try to request that.
Yeah. I mean, I know with.
I don't know. I'm just thinking.
I think, like, what the constable said is that, and I did do a little bit of research, like, the constable said, that those are requests. The constable, I don't think the constable was quite totally comprehending in terms of safety. Like the constable was still sort of thinking in terms of, well, what could the constable looked at to corroborate? I think when the constable hears testimony and sees some documents, it will be helpful, right?
Okay.
Just some
Yeah.
folks are better when they see more.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I think, because the constable said, you can request all those documents, Freedom of Information Act, that I could even request them from Canada. But what you and I are concerned about is Roy Black, right? It's
Right.
just weird. I said to the consul, it could just be coincidence, but abundance of caution. We're careful because obviously the information on Roy Black, and I mean nobody seems to really have looked much at at William Kyle at all, and it's just a bit odd that suddenly there's Roy Black drops dead a day after we've spoken on on a with a call dropout. So
right. All right. Well, I will forward you those things, and I will start getting me an itinerary to go down to Alabama. It'd probably be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week, something like that. And it's contingent on me getting my motorcycle back.
okay.
So I just spoke to the guy yesterday. The part was on order as of Monday. It was supposed to be in today or tomorrow at the latest. Apparently, it's not that difficult to put on, and after it's on, I should be good to go.
Okay.
So I'm hoping to get the bike back as early as tomorrow or early next week at the latest, unless, of course, that part doesn't fix it. So
Yeah. So something else then. So then I'm just sort of like question mark in terms of how to get at those files, all those other sort of reports, because those are helpful context. But the hospital one is quite helpful. But the other reports are really important because there's police, because didn't you said there was a police report filed regarding the complaint to Samantha, regarding Samantha?
Oh, yeah. There was a whole investigation that involved the FBI and the local police because when they first got her, the only thing she had was like a little plastic bag of like one change of clothes. So we went and in the beginning they weren't, hurting her. They just had us both there. And there was a witness at the shoe store that we went to that remembered both of us because we were kids and it was her being a black girl and me being a white kid. It was just something that stood out to the witness there. She was a slender black lady. Mm-hmm. And I know she was part of the investigation because she thought something was fishy even in the store. Just the way that Lynn was acting. Lynn was the one that actually took us out to get these clothes. Mm-hmm. But yes, there was an investigation and nothing came out of it. But it was more than just like a welfare check or something like that. They came and did a full investigation. They did find blood in the room that we were being stored in. And I was, as a result of that investigation, turned into CPS again. So,
and that was your second time to CPS?
Oh, it was at least the third time. I had been referred to CPS. That would have been in Alabama. I had already been referred to CPS in Tennessee during the year that we lived there, and I had been referred into the CPS system in Texas. So Texas, Tennessee, and Alabama, I was referred into the CPS system, and then in Florida, the beach incident at the Riptide area, that generated another investigation. The sheriff came down, did witness statements and all of that from the guy that fished me out off the sandbar and brought me in. They did interviews, and then we left from the beach, went home, and the sheriff in Alabama came and talked to my dad. So it was a across both of those states. So there was at least a precursory investigation, even if all that was a welfare check. But it went through the sheriff's office, the police station there in New Brockton, Alabama.
Let me ask you a question. When the investigation, when they found blood in the room where you and Samantha were held, mm-hmm. did they experience awareness Samantha had died, or had Samantha's body been moved already, so they were investigating?
They were investigating. Samantha's body had already been moved, and the only thing that they had was the one eyewitness account, and what they told the police was that she was a runaway that they took in for a period of time, and then she ran back away.
So they never even saw Samantha's body?
No. As far as I know, it's never been recovered.
So Samantha's body was never recovered.
Gotcha. As far as I know, it has not been. But that blood in that room was from her. Because that was the thing. It did not match any of us. And it was hers.
Okay. Now, let's see. So Samantha's body wasn't recovered. There was a full investigation. And you said you told the FBI what you remembered, or you told the police that...
I told the police many, many years later.
Many years later. Okay. But not right then.
Recall,
many years later.
Yes. Okay. I don't think I was even allowed to speak to the the
That's what I
investigating
recall.
officers.
Okay, no, that's okay. That's what I remember you said. So
Yes.
years later, so let's just jump forward a bit in terms of you told the police when you filed your police or FBI reports years
Yes.
later. So what years did
Yes.
you file those reports?
Would have been around 2021. 2020, maybe.
2020, 2021.
Yes.
Okay. So, and then you told the police.
Yes, I said, and you know, I really tried to stick with the things that could be verified, like going back and looking at the investigations and stuff like that. I remember more stuff that you can't get anything to really corroborate. So, you know, I just tried to focus on, okay, well, I know this generated a police report. I remember this generated a police report. So I just stuck to those things, which was kind of the same thing that I did with you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, now I don't actually have those police reports, but they should exist.
Yeah, and those again are ones that you can request copies of those police reports or FBI reports. And that's one of the questions the constable asked me, and I think it's helpful just in terms of perceptually. The constable said, "Well, why don't you have copies of the police reports?" And I said, "Well, I would ask you that. That's, you know, early in our discussions. Let me ask you a question. When you got the police reports and so on, that was 2020, 21. I mean, I know that when I filed complaints, you don't usually get a copy right away. You have to request the report, right? So when you filed those reports, what's the standard in the United States? Do they offer you copies? Is it just assumed that you would have to request a copy of those reports?
I can go. I mean, Lawton is just 30 something miles away. I can go and request, you know, the disposition of that case. I'm sure it's been closed, but I can go request it.
Yeah. Okay.
I can do that one. Just. I don't think that would raise any red flags. Let me see. Let me go tomorrow and see if I can get a copy of that one. That one might be the easiest, the most attainable one for me to get right now. I don't have to cross any state lines or anything to go get that.
So the Lawton one is from 2020, 2021-ish.
Yes, I could be wrong on that. I'm in my mind. I'm thinking I still had my Jeep, so that would have been around that time because I was trying to remember what vehicle I drove.
And that was the first time as an adult that you'd filed a police report, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And did you file an FBI report during the same year, or?
I reached out to the FBI and spoke to them on first through social media, and then we did a follow-on back and forth. But that was it. I never went to like the FBI building and sat down and gave a deposition or anything like that. His response was just to go to the local police, and that should trigger a larger scale investigation. So that's what I did. To the best of my recollection, I reached out to the FBI in the beginning because I knew that the FBI had been involved in the one in Alabama, in that investigation in Alabama with in regards to Samantha, and also they were involved in the investigation that landed the parents of the girl that I did the one movie with in Tennessee in jail. I know that the FBI was involved in that one as well. So I figured they were, as the larger scale operation, they would be the ones to go to. But they then referred me back down to the local police.
Sort of what occurred with me yesterday when I was trying to get in touch with somebody more in international policing with the RCMP. They seem to, whatever their sort of procedures are, they seem to sometimes get a little caught up in following procedures instead of thinking like of the specifics of each case. So
right,
I understand. So okay, so you talked to this FBI. They told you to go to the police. You filed the police report, and you can get a copy of the report in Lawton.
Yes.
Now
I'll do that tomorrow.
Okay, so Friday. Will you just sort of like let's sort of set a sort of standard about check in with me morning and evening wellness checks, okay? I would just feel better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And I will get you the DD-214. I'll get you that in the next few minutes here.
So DD-214, and then
yes.
Friday you'll get the police report.
Yes,
and then the medical, the paperwork from the hospital.
That's a little bit more of a involved process, but yeah. Sure, I don't mind ride down to Alabama and grabbing that.
Okay, so DD-214, police report, paperwork from hospital. Then we're looking at the Army buddies, Fort Carson Army buddies.
Yes.
And while we're sort of sorting out in terms of all of the other police reports you mentioned in, would you be mentioned in the report where the other girl's parents were charged?
Yes, because they investigated my parents. They knew it was me in the video. They just didn't have enough evidence to convict my parents. They got the girl's parents because even though they were careful not to show the faces of us, the children in the film, they had enough identifying features of the house, of the basement where we filmed the film, and it was the house of the parents of the girl is where we filmed it.
Okay. So those are really important reports to get, but we've got to figure out how to get those safely, because those could certainly, if there's a bunch of those that you request, they could get flagged. I need to sort of simmer about, because there's all requests that we should be getting all of those in. But maybe starting with that report, I'll just figure out, let's kind of noodle a bit about getting those safely. Because it's simple enough to request the reports. I just don't want you to request the reports. Although sometimes you can get them faster in terms of victim reports, but I want to just be really careful.
Right. Right.
And then I just feel like super careful with Alan as well, right? Because I was looking at some of Alan's posts, and Alan seems to like to sort of post about, when Alan's posted something that the MAGA Republicans have gotten angry at. So we want to be careful that Alan wouldn't, not to say a bunch of swear words, fuck shit up.
Yeah. I kind of got that from the Ed Opperman report. So
and my concern, I'm telling you there, when you mentioned Amanda, I'm like, there's just something odd about Ed Opperman. Either Ed Opperman is like sort of a sleazy ambulance chaser, or Ed Opperman's a sleazy ambulance chaser, and there's some connection in terms of like some different layers of the Trump Epstein pedophile enterprise, that they were using pilots and PIs to recruit, traffic, and silence victims.
Yeah, I think that would be an accurate deal.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, this stuff is all sort of helpful starting. I really, again, like super quiet until after Monday or Tuesday, for sure. Super careful. I think it would really help us not to even look at the news much. Because I don't, just like super selective looking at the news. I think because might be a lot of announcements suddenly, and we don't want to behave distracted or blindsided.
Well, I have been being very careful, so I will continue to do that, and I will get you those papers here in just a minute.
Awesome. Now, I just wanted to... There was something else I was going to ask you. I guess we covered most of it right now. Oh, yeah, just like in terms of getting a copy, gets information from Alan in terms of either a link to where in the public archives the mention is of William Kyle, or, Alan to send you copies. Even screenshots is a start and a link.
Okay, I haven't been back in contact with him since I gave you that information, but... Okay. I'm getting the paperwork right now. Let's see what I got here. All right.
Has Alan posted recently? Have you noticed?
I have not. I've only had the interactions that I've discussed with you with him.
Okay.
So outside of that.
Yeah, it looks like last time was 20 hours ago. Maybe.
Oh, here, I already got it. Here's my DD-214.
Awesome.
Okay. Yep, right on top.
Woohoo.
Oh, and it's already redacted. Perfect. It's ready to send. All right, I'll send those to you in just a minute.
Awesome. Oh, just a second.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just checking that. Okay, yeah, no, we're good. Yeah, get those off to me, and I feel like yeah, I'm gonna snorkel a bit.
Okay, sounds good.
I hit some
I'll
golf
check in
balls
with you.
yesterday. I'm gonna snorkel a bit and stuff, and then I'm just sort of pacing in terms of get it going through those audio. But at least it's all underway now and so on, and I'll get some other copies to some other folks today.
All righty, sounds good. And I'll get you these. You'll get them in the next 5 minutes, probably.
Sounds good.
All right. Talk to you in a little bit.
Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.